Hey, it's the Ultimate Handyman. Today I'm going to show you how you can change out your old style CFL can light bulbs, and we're going to convert the can into a screw type connector so that you can put hue lights that screw in or add a modern LED lighting fixture. So I wanted to say a little disclaimer before I start this video. I'm not going to be responsible for any damages to your property or possible deaths that may occur from you doing a poor job working on your own electrical system in your house. With that said, don't do anything you're not comfortable with. If you're not skilled enough to do this type of work, then hire a licensed electrician to perform this task. This video is just for entertainment purposes and just to give you some ideas on how this can be done. And with that said, make sure you turn the power off before you start any projects on your house. That way you don't get electrocuted or start a fire. So let's get back to the video. So after you remove the light bulb, first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the trim ring. There's two metal rods that are spring-loaded, and that's what holds it up to the ceiling. Just pinch them with your finger and thumb and pull it out. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the three Phillips head screws that hold the can light housing to its frame. Once you get the screws taken out, we're going to just gently push the can light housing up into the attic or ceiling space. And just get that out of the way. There might be a little bit of insulation that falls, but that's no big deal. That way we can gain access to the junction box that contains all of the electrical wires. So before I start messing with any wires, I want to explain to you what I'm going to be doing and what wires I'm going to be getting rid of. So we're going to be canceling out the electrical ballast that controlled the old CFL light bulb. We're not going to need that anymore. And on the back side of the junction box, you can see it there in white. It says Keystone. All the wires that go to that are going to basically get clipped off, and it's just going to be sitting back there. You could actually remove it off of the back cover plate from the junction box, but I didn't want to mess with those because there's a bunch of insulation around it. And as soon as you start disturbing that insulation, it wants to fall out and go all over the place in the house. So it's best just to leave it in place and not mess with it. So I'm going to show you what one of these looks like on the back side after I cut the wires. Now this one I'm showing you here has all the wires in one cluster. The one in the video actually has two different locations where the wires go through that metal plate, but it all works the same way. So in the electrical box, we've got our main power wires that come into the box. We're going to be keeping those. We've got a hot wire, which is black. We've got the white, which is the neutral, and we've got our bare copper wire, that's the ground. Now the other wires you see in here go to the ballast and to the can light housing where the CFL plugged in. Those are going to get removed from the setup in a second, and I'm going to show you exactly where I'm going to cut those out. So to cut out the wires, I'm just using a pair of dikes. I'm going to be cutting them off right where they come into the electrical box from the can light housing. I want to get that out of the way so I can get this done as quick as possible. Once you cut that, I'm going to cut the power wires that go into the electrical ballast. So there's a black and a white wire, a hot and a neutral, that come out of the electrical ballast, and then they plug into the main power cables. We're going to cut those. Make sure that power's off, or you're going to see some sparks flying. Then we're going to cut the red and blue wires out, and then we're just going to reach in and pull all this mess out of the way. And the only wires that should be left in this box are the main power wires coming in. You should see a Romex wire with a white loom, or it could be yellow, depending on what gauge they use. Usually they use 14 gauge wire for lighting. And here you go. You can see you've got your main power feed, the black, and we've got our white neutral wire with the electrical connectors still on the end of them. So I'm going to be replacing these electrical connectors with some new ones. So all you have to do to get rid of them is to twist and pull at the same time, back and forth, and they should pop right off. So now we're going to remove the can light housing from the electrical box. We're going to pinch the little clip that's on the electrical conduit. That way we can pull the conduit out, and then all you have to do is line it up with the hole in the ceiling and pull it out. So here's what the wiring should look like once you get everything removed. You should have your hot wire and your neutral and your ground coming in. So this electrical box only had one Romex coming into it. Sometimes you'll find some that have two coming into it. It's not a big deal. You're going to have two black wires and two neutral wires. You're just going to connect all the blacks to one electrical connector and all the neutrals to another electrical connector. So now we're going to prep our new can light housing. This is the H7 ICT from Halo. I picked these up at Home Depot. This is the only ones that had there that had the screw-in type connector for light bulbs. So we're going to be removing the 3 screws from the can light housing, and then we're going to remove the wire connectors and pull out the can light and the wiring. So in order for me to reuse the existing trim ring that's in the house, I need to move the bracket and assembly that the light bulb screws into up in the can light housing. So all I'm going to do is loosen that wing nut and slide it up as far as it goes. Now there is going to be a little bit of play in that, so I'm going to be adding a screw through the can light housing. So I'm going to need to drill a hole. It's going to be a 3/32 inch size hole, and then I'm going to leave the screw out until later once I get the can light housing up in the attic space, because if you try to put the screw in now on the outside, it won't fit through the opening. Now I'm going to reinstall my new can light housing into the ceiling space. This might take a little bit of finagling. It's a lot easier with 2 hands. I had to do it with 1 since I was filming. Just probably going to want to push it up and then spin it. Sometimes it goes in super easy, and then sometimes you have to give it a little bit of help by giving it a little tap. So the next step is to connect your electrical conduit to your electrical junction box. We're just going to feed the hot and neutral wire through the existing hole, and then we're going to push in the little clip that attaches it to the electrical box. There's 2 little tabs that will snap in just like that. So the ground wire is already connected to the electrical junction box, so I don't have to mess with that. All we need to do is connect our 2 black wires together, which are the hots, and our 2 neutral wires, which are the white wires. And then when you connect them to your connectors, make sure they're pushed up all the way up into the connector, or if you're using wire nuts, make sure they're twisted together nice and snugly. We're going to tuck everything in the box. Now we can reinstall our cover plate, and we are done with the wiring. All right, so now it's time to reinstall our new can light housing. The issue with this is that the can light housing holes do not line up with the old mounting bracket holes. So what we need to do is we need to mark the locations where the screws go with a Sharpie pen, just a little dot right on the edge of the sheetrock. Then we're going to put our can light housing in, and we're going to line it up with one of the holes and one of the slots, just like that. And then we're going to use our reference marks to find the locations where the new screw holes are going to be drilled. So I'm drilling the holes about 3/4 of an inch up from the edge of the can light. So once your hole is marked, then you could pull the can light housing down out of the ceiling a little bit. That way you can drill your new holes. I'm using a 1/4 inch drill bit. I made the drill bit a little bit bigger than the actual screw so that I can have a little bit of playroom to adjust and make sure everything fits. So once you get everything drilled out, now you can reinstall your screws. I start off with the existing slot and one of the old can light housing screws and that little metal plate that covers up the slot. Put that in first, tighten it down, then I go to the holes I drilled, get those lined up, and reinstall both screws. So remember that hole we drilled earlier? Now it's time to install the screw, and that will make that bracket nice and sturdy so that it won't move side to side. So some of the slotted holes I didn't use, so I just put some foil tape over them to seal them up and make them a little bit more airtight. So now it's time to reinstall the trim ring. We're going to take our spring-loaded metal rods, and those are going to go on this little bracket here in the can light housing. Once they're set, all you got to do is push it up into place. All right, so the only thing left to do is to install our new LED light bulb. This is a hue light. It changes to a bunch of different colors. Or you can also add one of these style lights. It's just an LED light that has its own built-in trim ring. You can pick these up at any big box stores, but either one will work just fine. So that's it for today's video. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I'll try to answer those as best as I can. And before you end the video, can you do me a huge favor? Can you please like, share, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell? And if you want to see more of my videos, check out some of my other content right here.